QGE.
Huge.
Yeah, AI agents and all the stuff that we can do with them, especially with MCP servers.
Absolutely. And yeah, if you're thinking about sort of the future of automation and how AI is going to sort of, take over the world,
Oh, yeah.
this is a deep dive that you want to be on because MCP servers, I think, are going to be a really crucial part of that whole picture.
Yeah, yeah. So, and we've got a whole bunch of different sources here
Yeah, we
that
agree.
we've been looking at.
It's a lot of stuff.
We've got some YouTube videos. We've got a couple of GitHub repositories we're looking at, and we've even been following some of the conversations that are happening over on Reddit.
Yeah, the rclad AI subreddit in particular has been a really valuable source of information, just seeing how people are using MCP servers in the real world and what kind of cool stuff they're coming up with.
Yeah. So I think before we even kind of get into all that, maybe we should just start with like the basics for
Yeah.
anyone who might not be completely familiar with what MCP servers actually are.
Yeah, that's a good point. So think of it this way. Model Context Protocol, or MCP as it's more commonly known, is essentially like a universal connector for AI agents. It allows them to interact with all sorts of external tools and services. Imagine it like a USB-C port on your computer. It doesn't matter what device you're plugging in as long as it has that connector. It can communicate and exchange data. So with MCP servers, your AI agents can tap into the power of things like databases, web browsers, APIs, and so much more.
Okay, so it's like the missing link almost between the AI that's trying to figure out what to do and the actual tools that need to be used to do it.
Exactly. It bridges that gap and opens up a whole world of possibilities.
All right, so let's jump into some of this source material and see what we can unpack here. One of the things that really stood out to me watching that Julian Goldie agency video on YouTube was just how much potential there is for real-world automation with this stuff. He actually walks through setting up MCP servers and using them for some pretty interesting tasks.
Yeah, I was really impressed with that video as well. It's a great starting point for understanding how MCP servers work in practice.
So one of the first things he does is he gets an API key from Perplexity.
Yeah. And API keys are essential for establishing those secure connections between your AI client and the external services you want to work with. It's basically a way to verify that your AI agent has permission to access and interact with those services.
Okay, so it's like a digital handshake to make sure everything's legit.
Exactly, a secure way to ensure that the right data is being accessed by the right applications.
Gotcha. So he uses Visual Studio Code as his client, which is a pretty popular code editor for developers.
Yeah.
But he also mentions that you don't necessarily need to be a coding expert to use MCP servers.
Yeah, that's one of the exciting things about this technology. It's becoming increasingly accessible to a wider range of users. You can use tools like Claude Desktop, which has a more user-friendly interface for configuring and interacting with MCP servers.
Okay, so even if you're not like a hardcore programmer, you can still get in on this action.
Absolutely. The barrier to entry is definitely getting lower.
That's cool. So one thing that Julian mentions in the video is that MCP servers are still relatively new, and you might run into a few hiccups along the way.
Yeah, he definitely emphasizes the need for a little bit of patience and a willingness to experiment. Things might not always work perfectly the first time you try them, but that's often the case with any new technology.
True, true. It's all part of the learning process.
Exactly. And it's important to remember the underlying potential of this technology, even if you encounter a few bumps along the road.
Yeah, and it seems like more and more AI platforms are starting to embrace MCP too. He mentions that Claude and Cursor were early adopters and that ChatGPT is also planning to integrate it.
Yeah, that's a really significant development. It signals the growing importance of MCP as a standard protocol for connecting AI agents with external services.
Okay, so it's not just like a niche thing. It's becoming more mainstream.
Definitely. I think we're going to see even wider adoption in the near future.
All right, so let's shift gears a bit and talk about another YouTube video we watched. This one is from the Rahul Shetty Academy, and it focuses on actually building AI agents using MCP servers to automate tasks.
Yeah, this video really gets into the nuts and bolts of how you can use MCP servers to create powerful and practical AI agents. And what's really cool is that these agents can understand instructions given in plain English.
Oh, wow. So it's not like you need to learn some special coding language to tell them what to do.
Nope, you can literally talk to them as if you were giving instructions to a human assistant.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So what kind of specific examples does he give?
He has this great example of using an AI agent for smoke testing a website.
Okay, and what does that mean exactly?
So smoke testing is basically a quick way to check if the most important parts of a website or application are working correctly. It's like a preliminary test to make sure there are no major issues.
Gotcha. So how does the AI agent actually do this?
Well, the AI agent uses a browser automation MCP server like Playwright or Selenium to actually control a web browser. It can open the browser, navigate to specific pages, and interact with elements on those pages just like a human user would.
So the AI is like the brains of the operation and the MCP servers like the hands that are actually carrying out the actions.
Exactly, a perfect way to put it. The large language model, or LLM, which is the AI brain behind the agent, is giving instructions to the MCP server, which then uses its capabilities to execute those instructions in the real world.
Okay, so it's like a tag team effort.
Precisely a collaboration between the AI's intelligence and the MCP server's tools.
So in the case of smoke testing, the AI might tell the MCP server, hey, go to the homepage of this website and check if the login button is working.
Exactly, and the MCP server would then open a browser, go to the specified URL, and attempt to click on the login button. It can even check if the button takes you to the expected page.
Oh, wow. So it can actually verify if things are working as they should.
Absolutely. It's a really powerful way to automate those initial checks and make sure there are no obvious problems.
That's super cool. So what other kinds of MCP servers does he mention?
Well, he gives a sneak peek into some upcoming content where he'll be covering commonly used MCP servers for things like database access, working with Excel spreadsheets, and making API calls.
Okay, so it's not just limited to web browsing. There are all sorts of different tasks you can automate with these things.
Exactly. The possibilities are pretty much endless. It really depends on what kinds of tools and services you need to integrate with.
And he even describes this whole end-to-end test scenario that sounds pretty amazing.
Yeah, he talks about an example where you pull data from a database, enter that data into a website form, confirm that everything is working correctly using API calls, and then feed the results back into an Excel file.
Wow, so that's like a whole multi-step process that's completely automated.
Precisely. It used to require a lot of manual effort and custom programming, but with MCP servers and AI agents, you can orchestrate these complex workflows much more easily.
That's incredible. So how do you actually interact with these MCP servers, though? Like what kind of tools or interfaces do you use?
Well, it depends on your level of technical expertise. If you're a developer, you might use something like Visual Studio Code. But if you're newer to this world, there are more user-friendly options available.
Okay, so there's something for everyone.
Exactly. Rahul mentions Claude Desktop as a good starting point for learning how to configure and use MCP servers. It has a more intuitive interface that makes it easier to get up and running.
Okay, so even if you're not a coding wizard, you can still dive in and start experimenting.
Absolutely. And once you've downloaded Claude Desktop, the next step is to actually configure the MCP servers within the client.
So it's kind of like adding extensions or plugins to a web browser. You're giving your AI agent access to new capabilities.
Precisely. You're essentially telling Claude, hey, I want you to be able to use this specific MCP server to interact with this service or tool.
And you provide it with all the necessary connection details like API keys and stuff.
Exactly. It's all about setting up those secure links so that your AI agent can communicate with the external services it needs to perform its tasks.
Gotcha. So let's talk about the different kinds of MCP servers that are out there.
Yeah.
I was blown away by the sheer variety of tools that are available. I mean, we saw everything from servers for web browsing and database access to servers for analyzing software issues and building knowledge graphs.
Yeah, we looked at that amazing list on GitHub, the Pipe Dream HQ Awesome MCP Servers repository. It's like a curated directory of all the cool MCP servers that are out there, and it's constantly being updated with new additions.
Yeah, the Reddit community was a goldmine of information, too. People sharing all sorts of interesting use cases and examples of how they were using MCP servers in their own workflows.
Yeah, it's really inspiring to see the creativity and ingenuity of the community. They're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with this technology.
So let's dive into some specific examples. What were some of the servers that stood out to you?
Well, one that caught my eye was Sentry. It's a server that allows AI agents to automatically analyze and flag issues in software applications. Imagine having an AI assistant that can proactively identify bugs and errors in your code or website.
Oh, wow. That would be a huge time saver for developers.
Absolutely. It could significantly streamline the debugging process and help ensure the quality and stability of software.
That's awesome.
What else? There's also Memory, which is a really intriguing server. It enables AI agents to build and interact with knowledge graphs.
Okay, and what exactly is a knowledge graph?
Think of it as a way to represent information as a network of interconnected concepts and relationships. It's like a visual map of how different pieces of data are related to each other.
Oh, interesting. So how does the AI agent use this?
Well, the AI can use the knowledge graph to learn and reason about the information it's given. It can make connections between different concepts and even draw inferences based on those connections.
Wow, so it's like giving the AI a deeper understanding of the world.
Exactly. It moves beyond simple keyword matching and allows the AI to understand the context and nuances of information.
That's pretty amazing.
Uh,
So what other cool servers did we come across?
Well, we saw a bunch of servers for accessing different online services and APIs like Brave Search, Google Maps, and Fetch, which allows you to fetch web content.
Okay, so you can basically tap into any service that has an API.
Pretty much, yeah. The possibilities are really vast. It all depends on what you want your AI agent to be able to do.
And the GitHub list goes even further. It includes MCP servers for all sorts of business applications like ERP, CRM, accounting, marketing, and sales, and more.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling, the sheer range of integrations that are possible. It really opens up the potential for automating complex workflows across different departments and industries.
So let's talk about some real-world applications of this stuff. Like, how are people actually using MCP servers to automate tasks in their businesses or personal lives?
Well, one example we saw was an MCP server for Equifax, which could potentially be used for automating credit checks in certain business processes.
Okay, so that could be a game changer for things like loan applications or background checks.
Exactly. It could significantly speed up those processes and reduce the need for manual intervention.
That's awesome. What else?
There's also ERP Next, which is a popular open source ERP system. There's an MCP server that allows AI agents to interact with ERP Next, which could automate a wide range of business management tasks.
Wow. So things like inventory management, order processing, financial reporting, all of that could potentially be automated.
Yeah, it's really powerful. And there are integrations with other business tools as well, like eTermin for appointment scheduling and various invoicing and accounting software.
So it's not just about automating individual tasks, it's about orchestrating entire workflows across different systems.
Exactly. The AI agent can act as a central coordinator, pulling data from one system, performing actions in another, and essentially connecting the dots between different parts of a business process.
That's super cool. So let's talk about some of the more advanced use cases and integrations that we came across. Like, how about that idea of combining MCP with personal knowledge management systems?
Yeah, that was a really fascinating discussion on Reddit. People were talking about how you could use MCP servers to connect AI agents with tools like Obsidian, which is a popular note-taking and knowledge management application.
Okay, so how would that actually work?
Well, there are a couple of approaches. You could use a file system MCP server, which allows the AI agent to access and interact with files on your computer. So it could read and write to your Obsidian notes, for example.
Oh, interesting. So the AI could essentially learn from your personal notes and knowledge base.
Exactly. It could use that information to answer your questions, generate insights, or even help you organize and structure your thoughts.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
What other ways could you integrate MCP with Obsidian?
Well, another option is to use a vector database integration. Vector databases are really good at handling large amounts of unstructured data, like text, and they allow for semantic search, which means you can search for information based on meaning rather than just keywords.
Oh, cool. So the AI could potentially understand the context of your notes and retrieve relevant information, even if you don't use the exact same words.
Exactly. It's a much more intelligent way to search and access information.
That's really cool. So what other advanced use cases did we come across?
Well, one that really caught my attention was Serena, which is an AI coding agent that's being developed.
Okay, so this is an AI that can actually write code.
Yeah, it goes beyond just simple code generation, though. Serena uses language servers, which provide detailed information about code structure and syntax. And it leverages symbolic search and edit operations via MCP, which allows it to interact with code in a much more sophisticated way.
So it's not just copying and pasting code snippets. It's actually understanding the code and making intelligent changes.
Exactly. It's like the difference between using a basic text editor and a full-fledged IDE, like VS Code. Serena has a much deeper understanding of the code, which enables it to perform more complex tasks.
Wow, that's really impressive. So what programming languages does Serena support?
Currently, it supports Python and JavaScript, but the developers are working on expanding language support to include languages like R and Swift.
So eventually, it could potentially handle pretty much any programming language.
That's the goal, yeah. And that would open up a whole world of possibilities for automating code-related tasks.
That's awesome. So we also talked about the concept of building custom MCP tools, which seems like a really powerful way to extend the functionality of this technology.
Absolutely. It means you're not limited to the existing set of MCP servers. If there's a specific service or API that you want to interact with, you can potentially build your own MCP server to do just that.
Oh, wow. So you can really tailor it to your specific needs.
Exactly. It gives you a lot of flexibility and control. And we even saw a real-world example of this on Reddit.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It was a user who created their own MCP tool to access the NHL API.
Okay, so they're a hockey fan.
Yeah, they wanted to automate their fantasy hockey analysis, so they built this custom MCP server that could pull data from the NHL API, combine it with their own local database of player stats, and even factor in things like game schedules and weather information.
Wow, that's dedication. That's really cool.
Yeah, it's a great example of how you can use custom MCP tools to create highly personalized and powerful automation solutions.
So I think one of the key takeaways from all of this is that the real power of MCP lies in the combination of different servers. It's not just about having access to individual tools. It's about being able to orchestrate complex workflows by using multiple servers together.
Absolutely. It's about connecting the dots between different systems and services and allowing AI agents to seamlessly move between them to accomplish complex goals.
So it's like building a custom toolkit for your AI agent, where each tool or MCP server provides a specific capability that can be deployed as needed.
Precisely. It's like assembling a team of specialists where each member brings their unique expertise to the table.
That's a great analogy. So of course, no technology is perfect and MCP servers are still relatively new. So what are some of the challenges or limitations that we need to be aware of?
Well, as we saw in those YouTube videos, the setup process can sometimes be a little bit tricky, and you might encounter errors along the way.
Yeah, it's not always going to be plug and play right out of the box.
Exactly. There might be some troubleshooting involved, and you'll need a little bit of patience and persistence.
But the potential rewards are huge, right? I mean, the ability to automate complex tasks and workflows could save businesses and individuals a ton of time and effort.
Absolutely. It could significantly boost productivity and efficiency.
Yeah.
And as the technology matures, I think we'll see those challenges become less and less of an issue.
And what's really encouraging is that MCP is an open protocol, which means that it's not controlled by any one company.
Yeah, that's a huge advantage because it promotes collaboration and innovation across the industry.
And it also means that we can expect to see more and more tools and integrations being developed in the future.
Exactly. The community is constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible with MCP. And as more AI platforms embrace this technology, the potential applications will only continue to grow.
All right, so let's wrap things up here. What are some of the key insights that we want listeners to take away from this deep dive?
Well, I think the biggest takeaway is that MCP servers represent a really significant step forward in our ability to build practical and versatile AI agents.
Yeah, they're not just theoretical concepts anymore. They're actually capable of performing real-world tasks and automating complex workflows.
And for the listener, the exciting thing is that this technology is becoming increasingly accessible. You don't need to be a coding expert to start exploring the power of MCP servers.
There are user-friendly tools like Claude Desktop that make it easy to get started and experiment with different servers and applications.
So we encourage everyone to dive in and see what they can create with this technology. Think about your own daily tasks and workflows, and what aspects of those could potentially be automated using AI agents powered by MCP servers.
And if you're looking for inspiration, check out those resources we mentioned earlier, the modelcontextprotocol.io website, and those awesome GitHub repositories. They're great starting points for learning more about this exciting field.
And as a final thought-provoking question, as this technology continues to evolve, how do you think it will reshape the way we interact with software and manage our digital lives?
Could we be moving towards a future where the lines between individual applications become blurred and we rely more and more on intelligent agents to handle tasks for us?
It's a fascinating question to ponder, and we're excited to see how it all unfolds.
Absolutely. All right, thanks for joining us for another deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.